because at some point it was just like women were still allowed to do that, but men were just put like, well, no, you have to be strong and push through. That's what men do. And so there's that conflict between, it's like, well, I want to be like a man and, you know, have this image, but I also have these like human basic needs of I want to be held, I want to be seen, I want to be loved, and I want to be able to express my emotions.
That was for me. I was basically feeling that no one is really there with me and listening what I have to say. And because I wasn't heard, I was so angry. So, and if I was angry, I was punished. You know, that's how my parents deal with the anger, you know.
Fear. So it's really when we're saying no to anger, when anyone says no to our anger, it's really they're saying no to our hurt and they're saying no to our fears. They're just like, that's not okay, shut it down.
These like ideas of who you're supposed to be as a man, who you're supposed to be as a woman, you know, and like all these restrictions and that's so wrong because like at the end we really all want to be loved. And it's limiting.
For me of like men can't fall apart, and I feel insecure when my partner falls apart because they have to be this, you know, knight in shining armor. They have to have this image. So like when they're starting to fall apart, I'm like, no, here's some glue, like we can put this together and fix it up, because it's not okay. Like I don't feel safe if the man in my life is falling apart or has emotions, because I never saw my dad have that. Like my dad was always just like, we're gonna fix this, we're okay. He didn't allow me to show his, like, to see his vulnerability, to see his like, I have no idea what we're doing, but we're gonna figure this out. Welcome to another episode of Flow, Grow, and Thrive, where we discuss topics that are there, bringing things to awareness so we can flow with what is, so we can learn and grow from that and thrive in our daily lives. So you are here with Anna and Judita, and today we're kind of going a bit further with that topic that we discussed in the last episode, and we talked about the bodies and when is it that we started rejecting or disconnecting from them. And today we're going into when did we start disconnecting from our emotions, and for some of us did it more than others, but when is it that it became not okay and why? So Judita, do you want to start?
Hello. Yeah, I love it. I love it. To actually like disconnect from the emotions, like, you know, that in my case, actually, like to share that with you, it was quite early. I was just like very like young when I was trying to suppress that pain, you know, and everything what was going on, which was like too much for me in my body. And I just like basically I couldn't handle it anymore. So I just pushed it somewhere very, very deep, you know. With,
I apologize for smiling, but it's just like when you started, you know, we all have our story, but it was just kind of like, when did you disconnect from it? It's like, it all started when I was really young, you know, and a lot of people have that. Then it's just like, it accumulates like, well, that first trigger was when I was 3. You know?
No, I love it because like
you can laugh about it after you do the inner work and after you see that, but like in the moment you're experiencing that, it's like no,
not at all. You just can't see it in that moment. But now when you actually like go back and you see it and you're like, oh my God, like I was basically there and I wasn't really there, was I? Because well, yeah, that's what that was for me. I was basically feeling that no one is really there with me and listening what I have to say. And because I wasn't heard, I was so angry. So, and if I was angry, I was punished. You know, that's how my parents deal with the anger. You know, I was basically punished for my anger, which was quite interesting when I think about it now. Like, you know, you get angry, so you get punished. Here you go. If that's like even more like for you. So it's quite interesting. So for me, that was the moment where I was very young, and when I was like basically angry or I wanted to say something, I was like punished because, you know, you have this role model of your parent that's the authority for you, you know, person which actually like decides for you what to do, what's right and what's wrong. And I already felt as a child that it's not right. You know,
it's like, but I already know better, you know, like I feel like I'm a lot younger than you, but I know what's going on here.
Yeah, so that was like moments for me where I basically was avoiding my emotions, my feelings, because you don't want to feel it because if you get punished for it, no
that's not
way.
safe.
You know?
It's like anger's not safe.
Yeah, exactly. What about you? Now I'm wondering, like, what's
Well, first of
your
all, I want to touch
story?
on what you said and just kind of piggyback on that
Hmm.
because, it's like,
Hmm.
because anger, underneath anger is real, like anger is such a good emotion. Like it's just saying like, I'm not okay. Like, this is not okay. And this is just like, you like saying it loudly. And underneath that, it's like, there's just that hurt. And underneath there's that fear. So it's really when we're saying no to anger, when anyone says no to our anger, it's really, they're saying no to our hurt and they're saying no to our fears. They're just like, that's not okay. Shut it down deeper. And whether it's
Yes.
our parents, whether it's our friends or partners, like when somebody's
Mhm.
saying no to anger, that's really like you're saying no to that whole person, and that can be
Mhm.
really heavy.
Mm.
I want to emphasize the thing that you said is like, well, parents, and we're looking to them for guidance. And I wanted to share that as I was just working with a client that actually was experiencing that. And she was saying, like, I want to be strong for my kids. And I was explaining to her, it's like, strong is showing you vulnerability. Strong is showing that it's okay to cry. And I was explaining, it's like, well, look at your pattern, right? It's like you had your parent that was there, like, I'm okay and I can, push through this. And this person actually had like a mother who was there kind of holding it all together, and a father that was kind of, I want to say like emotionally abusive, but the mother was holding it together. And then when the mother died, like that really came out, but she was there kind of holding it and being okay. And that mother showed her child, my client, that like, it's okay, just be strong, don't show emotions, like we can push through this. And now this client who's there, she feels bad when her daughter's asking her like, well, why are you crying, or why are you sad? And she's there like, oh, I'm okay, I'm, and trying to be strong. And it's like, but what are you teaching your kids? Like you're teaching them the
Mhm.
same thing, you're teaching them the same pattern of just like, I not okay feeling my feelings. I'm pretending that I'm strong so that you can do the same thing. And you can ask in your 20s or 30s, like, what's wrong? Why do I have emotions? And
Mhm.
like that kind of
Mm.
role modeling that we have. And for me, what I want to share is also, I actually had that when I was doing the deeper inner work around like men. And it was this idea for me of like, men can't fall apart. And I feel insecure when my partner falls apart because they have to be this, knight in shining armor. They have to have this image. So like when they're starting to fall apart, I'm like, no, here's some glue. Like we can put this together and fix it up, because it's not okay. Like I don't feel safe if the man in my life is falling apart or has emotions, because I never saw my dad have that. Like my dad was always just
Mhm.
like, we're gonna fix this, we're okay. He didn't allow me to show his, like, to see his vulnerability, to see his like, I have no idea what we're doing, but I'm gonna figure this out.
Mhm.
And he was just always there like, yeah, I've got this, I've got this. And that
Mhm.
taught me of like, okay, men have got this. So when there's a human man in my life, I'm like, why haven't you got this? But it's just like, he's being human, because humans don't got this all the time.
Mm, mm. No, I love it that you're actually touching that part with the men, because
Hmm.
I believe that there is a, like, big wave of happening, healing happening for women, but it's so behind for the men, because it is so that energy of actually men crying, men being vulnerable,
Hmm.
men, like, not like being okay. That's such a big thing, and no one's like, there is of course somebody speaking about it, but I still feel it's not enough,
Yeah.
because yeah, because how can you heal the world, like, you heal the man, because
Yeah.
that's
Well,
how I
and I
believe.
feel like a
Yeah.
lot, because we don't have those practices anymore of like men being initiated and men really having like from boyhood to manhood, and then having
Mhm.
this like healthy role models of like, this is how
Oh
a
yeah.
man is, and this is what
Hmm.
like what healthy masculinity looks like. And
Hmm.
so it's like, it's oftentimes women that have to be initiating the men into that, and that's a really painful process for everybody, for like women who aren't being held the way they need to, and men who are there like, I don't want to hurt them, but I'm also have no idea what I'm doing. And so it's like that, I feel like that lack of elders and the lack of role models that we would have in previous societies, like that, that's really
Hmm.
lacking.
Yeah, that's so right that it's lacking. And interesting thing is that when you say that the women are the ones who are basically like educating men in that, or trying to like support
Initiating
them,
even,
and
yeah, their
that's quite
masculinity.
hard, isn't it? Because we have our own wounds of like being like abused, killed, witch hunt, all that is
Yeah.
actually in our like blood, and we felt that there was so much bad stuff done to the women, and now actually we are trying to get like not over it, but we try to kind of like work
Move
through
through it
it.
and heal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then at the same time support men, and not to have that big rage and anger,
Yeah.
which comes out,
Towards masculinity generally, because if you think of a mother, like a mother with her children, she's not a feminine,
Mm,
she's a masculine energy because she's there leading them and she's there guiding them. So
mm,
like so for like a little girl, like her mother could be like, for me, my mother was a single parent, she was the one doing it all, like she was the masculine in my life, so there was a lot of mistrust, not because my dad, like he was like the good parent for me, but there was a
mhm,
lot of distrust because of how my mom showed up and like in an oppressive way and so on. And for me, it was like, oh, I don't feel safe trusting the masculine because of that in my life. So, and same with little boys, it's like when there's that confusion of just like, well, this is the masculine. And it's kind of like, I use my mom for a role model. If, for example, I was raised without a dad. And I feel like a big one is also just what is masculinity and tuning into that concept that like for women it's okay to feel emotions, like you were saying, that men are like going into that now, or they're crying, and also like in the context of where they're crying, because some people are like, well, I cry during movies, I'm okay. It's like, how
mhm,
open are you, how are you able to do that with a partner? Are you able to like open up
mhm,
vulnerably and express yourself with other men, which is so important, and with your partner, with your woman, which is so important? Like, are you able to do that? Because that's a really different experience. And
mhm,
I feel like that came from that, that at some point it's like boys aren't allowed to express their feelings anymore. Or it's like, like, do you say I love you to your son? And like, a dad is like, well, do you kiss your son? Do you hug him when he's like, I don't know, 12 or something? And it's like, at that age, it's like, well, he's too old now. You know what I mean? Like, as for example, you would with like a really young child, like a 5-year-old, you hug him and kiss him, and like, they don't
mhm,
do that with older boys. But girls, it's still okay to have emotions. Like, it's still okay to hug and to kiss. Like, it's more physical. And that physical bond, I mean, like we know this from psychology, neuroscience. It's like when you touch, when you have physical sensations, it releases chemicals in your body, like you feel safe. And
mhm,
boys at some
mhm.
point, they don't get that anymore.
Yeah, isn't it? Because like, in the men's world, to actually touch each other, there is this like twisted vision of being gay when
Hmm.
man is touching other men, that
Depending
it's
on the
not a,
cultures, because that also
yeah.
varies. But yeah, like
Mhm,
growing up in Europe, like Western,
mhm,
in the Western world, and like when you see people from other cultures where it's like really normal for men to hold hands, like it's just like
mhm,
that was kind of we like, I want to say weird, because especially when that whole, like, I mean, I grew up like, my parents were from Ukraine, so there was a lot of the judgment towards like same-sex marriages and so on. Like that's the culture that I grew up in, and I was actually there like, no, but that's normal, because I grew up in Canada, so that was like a bit different concept. So
mhm,
for me, for example, that was normal. Like that's not something I look at in a weird way, but for many people it is, who grew up in that more traditional way. It's just like, oh, physical contact is okay between women but not between men, in a lot of cultures.
mhm, yeah, you're right. And I actually like believe that there must be like so hard to like growing up in that like culture, and not being able to express your emotions. And especially if you actually like want to be with a man, that must be like
Hmm.
super, super hard. And yeah, but I don't want to really touch that topic because that would be like
Yeah, we're
another.
gonna go for an hour here. Yeah, but and
Yeah.
that's why I want to emphasize like the importance of like there's so many people that are like men that start doing the inner work, and who are there starting to like create men groups and so on. And that's so important, because that masculine community is so important, because it's kind of like they're trying to fix that which men haven't gotten. Because really it's like, women get physical contact, like we're okay hugging, we're okay touching, we're okay even like doing things like, for example, dancing. Oh my god, like that's just such a healing practice. I'm like a big fan of that. Like
Mhm.
moving your body, connecting to it, that seemed normal in a lot of societies. Men, what do they have? They only have sex. That's all they have, right? That's the only. And obviously, and then there's that judgment of like, oh well, all men want sex, and like, well, that's the only way of like the acceptable way of physical contact that they have, because there's such a lack. Like I feel like that's a big problem, because there's such a lack of like anything else. Is like everything else is not socially acceptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that's like like brings up a lot of questions. Like, how can you, as a man, like bring some other practices into your life, or like into relationship with your son, like more emotions, more
Or
like
with
physical
yourself even.
content, yeah, and with yourself,
I want to
yes,
say
of
that,
course.
yeah, brings into like, that self, like that inner child who did like, I didn't get enough physical contact growing up. And like, that
Yeah.
wasn't okay for me. That's what really it comes from.
Hmm.
And then we have that, validation from the outside. So it's, for example, like, Oh, that's actually a really deep one. For a woman, it's okay to say like, I want to be held right now.
Hmm.
For a man, how would you react if a man says that? Like, I want to be held right now. But that's such just a need, like but that child needs to be held. Like you want to be held by a mother or, by a parent, you want to feel safe. And it's okay to say that like later on in life. Oh, it's okay to hear that from a woman, but from a man, I'd be like, why? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not as welcomed.
Yeah, I love it because like not that I love it that it's happening, but I love that it's actually like how we even separate like each other from being a man and being a woman, but
Yeah.
actually to be whole as a human
Which is
being,
a
as a
basic need.
soul.
And it's like, but
Yeah,
for these ones, it's okay to be mad, but for men, it's not okay
yeah.
if this need is met.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. How we actually put the like these like ideas of how who you're supposed to be as a man, who you're supposed to be as a woman, and
Yeah.
like all these restrictions and that's so wrong because like at the end we really
It's
all want to be
limiting.
loved. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's limiting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I
Mhm.
recently just saw this meme about how, men, it's like, oh, be gentle to your men because they're repressing so much. And it was just like this man just like going down and then it was like turning into a volcano and erupting. And that, like, and men have, I think, higher rates of suicide, I believe, like later on in
Oh
life.
yeah. Yes.
And I wanted to say, like, my mind first is like, yeah, but that's a choice being in that place. It's like, yes, and it's also conditioning in a sense. It's like, yes, you absolutely, I mean, when you're at your rock bottom and you want to really make a change in your life, you will, right? You're going to find those resources, but also that conditioning of it's not safe for me to express my emotions. Like I do hold it in and then I do erupt as a volcano because I haven't been taught that it's okay to feel my feelings, because at some point it was just like women were still allowed to do that, but men were just put like, well, no, you have to be strong and push through. That's what men do. And so
That's
there's
it.
that conflict between it's like, well, I want to be like a man and, have this image, but I also have these like human basic needs of I want to be held, I want to be seen, I want to be loved, and I want to be able to express my emotions.
No, I love it. And I would actually end this episode with this because it was just so beautiful. And but as I said, like or our like listeners, if you're listening now, and how can you actually like as a man and as a woman, of course, as well, to bring like some more nourishing practices
Mm.
or maybe communicate with your partner, to just sit down and like to tell her what is it that you feel and what is it that you want from her.
Definitely
I
for
would
men,
say.
it's like an invitation. I feel like that's even like a next level. I feel like at the beginning for so many men, it's like Louise Hay, who was just like an incredible practitioner. I'm sure you know of her. She said that like a
Mm,
lot of people, especially men, that like when they came to her, they would just have trouble speaking to a mirror and saying, I love you. Like just
mhm.
saying to yourself, like it's like going with a partner and like really allowing them to see you. That's like a whole next level. Or like a male friend that's just like, hey, I really want to be vulnerable, like this is my truth. But it's just like, can you just start with yourself? I would invite to do that. And this is for both
Yeah.
men and women, because women as well, like those who are acting from their masculine. I mean, I was definitely that. It's like emotions weren't safe and I'm just like, go, go,
Yeah.
go, like let's repress that. So
Yeah.
I think like you can relate to that as well, right?
Yeah.
It's just like,
That's
yeah,
me.
yeah. So I feel like the start from that would even be just like, can you open up to yourself and can you start speaking? And I would strongly actually encourage to vocalize it, to open this area of
Yeah.
here, to say
Yes,
your
and
truth, like I'm
yeah, and to
hurt right
bring the mirror in and just
now.
like look at yourself and into the mirror,
Yeah.
into your eyes and just say these simple words. I love you. I'm
Yeah.
here for you.
And if there are tears coming of their emotions, like you're not weird. That happens for so many
Yeah.
people. That's
Yeah.
the normal reaction when you first do it. And when you actually say like I'm
Exactly.
sorry to yourself as well. Like that was a huge one for me, I remember. So just speaking these things to a mirror. And yeah, and let us know in the comments of just like, what do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Where do you think that, do you feel like men are allowed their expression, or have you observed in your practice that that's not so? And what do you feel like that change can be from you, because we can pinpoint, like point fingers and
Yeah.
say like, this is wrong and society should be this. Is like,
Yeah.
okay, but what is the change that you can make? Because it really begins with you.
Mm-hmm.
So on
Love
this
it.
note, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Judita,
Thank
and we'll see you in
you.
the next one.